Let us look at arguments in JavaScript. First, let us look at how we pass arguments and parameters in a function. I have defined a simple function called sum that takes in two arguments, then adds those two numbers, then returns the results. And when we call that function, we do get the answer of 3. That is simple and straightforward. But imagine a scenario where we have more than one arguments or parameters rather passed into a function. Let's say we have C, D, so on and so forth. You can immediately see that this becomes cumbersome to manage. You will end up with a very lengthy list and you might not know what to expect as the input. So there is a neat object that is in every JavaScript function that is for non-arrow functions called arguments, which is an array that contains arguments that have been passed into a function. Let me console log this so that you can see. I'll revert back to my previous example of A and B just to keep it simple. Console.log. Then in every non-arrow function, you have an arguments object. The reason why it is referred to as array-like, it is because it has a length property, but it does not have built-in array functions. So in case you want to access array-like functions, they are not available. Things like .map, .filter, they are not available. So this is a way to access the arguments that have been passed in a functions. So in case I want to access the value of A, I can come and replace this with the index of 0. It is 0 indexed. Then for B, the index of 1. And you can see that we are getting the same result of 3. But this is not efficient. So what we need to do is create a way to add any number of arguments that have been passed, or just get a sum of any number of arguments that have been passed into a function. Basically find a way to convert this to an array. So various methods of doing it. The first one is converting this into an array, and you can have access to the inbuilt methods attached to arrays. So the first way is just by using array.from. That works as magic. Then you can pass in the arguments. It converts the arguments into an array, and you have access to the inbuilt methods of an array. And instead of doing this, we can basically use the reduce function to sum up the numbers. Reduce. Let us just use a normal function. We can have the previous value, then the current value, then return the sum of previous plus current. Then our initial value will be 0. And when we run that, we can see that we are getting the result. So this is one way of doing it. We can also choose to use some of the new features that were introduced in ES6. The spread operator. You can choose to do it that way. And that also converts it to an array and gives you access to the inbuilt array methods. That also works as expected. Another way to do this would be to basically use the call function on the different array methods, then pass in the arguments. For instance, we can call the array.prototype.reduce, then we can have the call method on the reduce method. Then pass in the arguments as the first parameter. And you can see it also works as expected. We can also choose to shorten this by just having an array at that point. And that also works as expected. But one of the neat ways of just working with this would be to use the latest features that were introduced in ES6. So the REST param works really well in this context because it is an array and comes in already with the built-in array methods. But in case you want to learn more about this, you can check out my ES6 tutorial, and I will link it up in the card above and also in the comment section and the description of this video. Yeah, so that is a brief introduction to the arguments keyword that is available in non-arrow functions. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, and see you in the next video.